Hey, this is Clyde Jackson. Brought my boat up here to Marine Parts Source. It's a Mercury 115 horsepower Triton. Getting the fluids changed in it, getting the plugs changed in it, a new water pump put in it. It's time to get it serviced, and it seems like a great place to get it done. We'll see what happens.
Hey guys, we're going to do a full 3-year service on this engine today. It's a Mercury 115 4-stroke, so if we find anything throughout as we're going through, we're going to also try to do that, fix that. Hopefully we don't run any of those issues, but we're going to just go through it today and we're going to show you through it as well. So first we're going to do the lower unit oil change. For that we're going to need basically a quart of the gear lube. We need a gear lube pump like this one here from Sierra. Whenever we're doing that, we always make sure to change out these drain plug gaskets. There's cheap insurance to make sure we don't get water into the drive. We're going to need a flathead screwdriver, and just to keep up any oil, we use these 3M oil absorbent pads that only absorb oil and no water. To start this process, it's pretty simple. All we're going to do is just remove these drain plugs here, and then after that we'll remove that one there, and then it'll really start flowing. So we're looking to make sure this gear lube has no milkiness. A little bit of water is not a big deal. You know, you're going to get some of that as it heats and cools, but if it looks milky like chocolate milk, you know you're in trouble. If you have glitter, you've obviously got a gear issue. You need to look into that. So for this job, you've got to have a gear lube pump, because you're going to fill it from the bottom to the top. And then when it comes out this top drain hole here, that's when you know you've got it. So super easy. Like I say, you literally just start pumping until it comes out the top. Another thing we always do is we'll let it set for just a second and let any air pockets that may be inside of it, a lot of times I'll even rotate it a little bit, any air pockets that may be inside of it will actually fill inside the cavity. So you let it set for a second, maybe a minute or 3 or 5, just a couple minutes, and then you'll put the plug in the top to keep it from draining out real fast, as we saw when we were draining initially, and then we'll go through and put it in the bottom. Like I said, always make sure to change out those drain plugs when we're doing it. Okay, so whenever you're putting this up for the winter, it's always a good idea to remove this prop and make sure you grease the spline on the shaft. If you don't do that regularly, it can get hung on there and real hard to come off. It's just cheap insurance to make sure that prop's coming on and off and you're not getting any wear and tear on that on those gears there. So all we're doing here is bending back these pieces. This isn't the greatest tool in the world for it, but it'll work. This is the perfect tool. If I had this straight, that would be even better. Always use the proper tool for the job. Checking those splines, get that grease off there. You can tell this grease has turned just a little bit from how it's a little white there. Looking to make sure you don't have any fishing line in here. No signs of leaking gear lube that I see here. Okay, so we're just wiping off the old grease best we can. This is BRP triple guard grease, and we do sell that as well. Even when you get it tight, if you can't lock down the washer, you may still have to back it up just a hair to where those will lock in, and that'll hold your prop in there. So you got all your locking tab pressed into the notches in all 3, so we're good to go, and it spins freely. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and change the spark plugs here in this engine. Each one of those are going to be under each one of these coils here. We find the plug number in the gap here on the Mercury tag right underneath each one of these plugs, underneath 4 plugs. one little tech tip that I found out recently is the NGK does not want you to use any anti-seize on their product, because you can actually over tighten because of slippage and crack the shell on the spark plug itself. So that's one thing you might want to keep in mind as well. So before we put in these spark plugs, you always want to check the gap. I know I get a lot of calls, people say, aren't they pre-gapped? They're never pre-gapped, so you always want to check them. 32 thousandths is what we're looking for. So we're on spec with all of these. I went ahead and pre-gapped all these other ones off camera just a moment ago. We're going to need a ratchet, an 8mm socket, and a spark plug socket. This one's 5/8 for these NGK plugs. And then we're going to remove the cable off the coil here. We'll remove the 8mm screw, and then remove as we're going through, we will remove the coil over top of the plug. Too crazy. First one, I'll have an idea about how long to go. Sure felt like it. So that one's not too bad. It's got a little bit of carbon on it, but not too bad. So I always start them going backwards and try to fill it lap. So when I put these in, I roll this backwards until I hear the thread actually lap backwards, and then I actually hand tighten them forward with this piece, with the extension piece here. And then I grab my wrench and actually torque them down. So after I tighten them down just a little bit with my wrench, I actually go through and truly torque them to make sure I get them in there good. Once again, like I said, we don't use any anti-seize or anything to that effect, but we'll just literally torque them down till we hear them. So we'll make sure we get each one of them.
Why are you doing that?
To make sure that they're seated properly. So next we're going to go on to removing the fuel filters on this one. This one luckily has just got a couple of inline fuel filters that are going to be super easy to change. If you had to do the fuel filter inside the canister, that's a completely different process, but we're just going to change these two inline fuel filters that are real easy to get to. So these are directional. You'll see a little arrow on here. I know it may be hard to see, but you want to make sure your arrow's going in the right flow of direction there, or else you will have troubles. A little gasoline, that's always fun. Next we're going to change the engine oil. So all we need for this is going to be the funnel, an 18mm socket and wrench. Got another one of our 3M oil absorbent pads, good oil filter, definitely marine oil, not just regular oil. These engines are going to run at a higher RPM for sustained time, so you got to have marine oil. Don't use standard automotive oil. And so this is actually going to be the Sierra Oil 25W40. This one actually is catalyst compatible, even though this one doesn't have a catalyst on it. It will work for it as well. There's a tag over here on the top that we're going to show you here in just a moment. It actually tells us the oil capacity and weight here. So FCW for the marine style oil, 25W40 for the oil, and then 5.3 US quarts. So you just take whatever oil filter you have, or oil filter wrench you have, to get this oil filter off. I've actually already loosened this one just to make sure that I could get it off easily and show you guys. So this one was actually on just about hand tight, but so I'm gonna just twist it off here, and any residual oil that's gonna be in there is gonna go flowing pretty quickly. So. I like to write the date and my name on it just to make sure we know who changed it and when. There's a place to put hours on it as well. On the little tag, it's kind of nice that Sierra puts that on there. But here's what we're looking at. Some of the newer ones actually have a hose nipple on it, and you can put a 7/8 hose, I think is what it is, on there, and then it will drain out a little cleaner. This one You just got to tilt it up and kind of get ready for it to spray. You got to back off of it just a little bit. So we will be ready. Okay, so now we're just going back to, we put the plug back in, we're going to go back and put the same oil back in. Like I said, it's 25W40. It is 5.3 quarts, yes, 5.3 quarts. Obviously just need a just standard funnel, nothing special about this. So here we are, we're back about to do the water pump kit on this. We're just going to change the impeller. We've got a Sierra kit. We're not doing the entire housing because most likely he's had this changed recently. Most likely his housing is going to look good. Most of these housings, unless you're just running them up in sand, you're going to see they're more than capable of taking just a little bit of debris. So a lot of times these will take a set, and then these need to be replaced every 3 or so years. So I'm going to go to the other side now. I've just loosened the back one. I've still got it on there so it doesn't fall all the way off. So it's loosened pretty far out there. You can see it's just about ready to come off, but just a few more cranks will come off. Just going to make sure, just safeguards, we don't drop it on the ground.
See the space?
That's it. These shafts are always super long. Sometimes these will hang up inside of there. That's something you got to make sure that definitely comes out, the little water tube there. So we're gonna replace this and get this going here. Okay, so now that we've got the 4 bolts out, we're gonna remove the upper housing with the impeller. Just going to make sure we get all these parts out, make sure not to lose that keyway. So you just slide it off there. You don't have a little bit of grease to contend with there, pull out. And say most of these parts you're just going to get new. You got your wear plate there, your old impeller, and then your base plate there, which we're not going to mess with on this one. Let's see what that looks like. See how that's set like that. So once it gets set like that, it definitely won't push as much water. So those should be fairly flexible. This one, the edges aren't real flat on the edge there, so it's not terrible, but it definitely needs replaced. So with this kit from Sierra, these gaskets only go one way. You've got this little hole right here that you need to make sure you don't cover up. If you turn it one way and line the holes up, it covers that hole, and obviously doesn't mount on that plate well. But you turn it the correct way here and it leaves that hole open there. Same with this other one. You know, let's say it's a one-way gasket. If you do it here, it's not quite doing it right. Get it here and it mounts right. Okay, so I've set the plate, the gasket, wear plate, and the other gasket here. Manhandle this thing into here, which is always the fun part here. And when you bump, and then after you bump it, once you bump it, it'll go to place, and you'll set your keyway down here. Usually what I do is I'll slide it down and slide it over the keyway. Fun's just starting. Fun's just starting. You come over here and watch me struggle. So we finally finished up the boat. We had a little bit of trouble putting the gear case back on. We ended up having to put it into gear and then work the shifter to get it back in place. Did make that happen. Had it on earmuffs, made sure it went into forward and reverse. Everything went good. It was definitely had the telltale putting out water good. So we had a successful day. Everything went well.
If you run into any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below and we'll address them as quickly as possible. And as always, you can reach out to our ABYC certified experts at the number on the screen. Now, if we've helped you in any way, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.